So I'm sure that by now you guys have all heard about the new Canon C500 Mark II, which should be available sometime in December. I'm here to tell you that it's my opinion and belief that the Canon C500 Mark II has effectively positioned itself to be the absolute best camera in the market for indie filmmakers, independent owner-operators, content creators, and essentially modern cinematographers. Let me tell you why. So in this video, I'm going to actually play the Canon C500 Mark II introduction video, and I'm going to pause it along the way and give you my thoughts. So let's jump in.
With a 5.9K full-frame CMOS sensor.
5.9K full-frame sensor. That sounds sexy, doesn't it? And let's be real, full-frame filmmaking has always really equaled a lot of money. And even when it's full-frame 1080, you look at the 1DX Mark II, that camera today can only shoot full frame when it is shooting in 1080, and it still sells for about $5,000. Ever since the Canon 5D Mark II, I, like many of us, fell in love with that full frame look. And for the past couple of years, I've been trying to sort out and figure out how I can level up and step into that full frame filmmaking on an actual digital cinema camera.
User swappable lens mounts.
User swappable lens mounts? I'm just gonna say thank you right off the bat, because as a content creator, this gives me a tremendous amount of flexibility. Now, don't get me wrong, user swappable lens mounts is something that Red has offered for quite some time at this point. And I believe Blackmagic has actually started to offer that here over the past, 18 months or so. For Canon to do this, it's kind of unheard of. It's never been done before. And the reason why something like this is actually a big deal to someone like me is because I can go shoot a corporate project on this one camera using my Canon L series lenses, which is going to be acceptable for that, especially if it's web delivery, right? But then I can take that same camera, swap out the lens mount, put it into a commercial production environment where I might be shooting on, Arri Master Primes or Cook lenses. That's a big deal.
Cinema raw light and xf-avc recording.
For those of us who have been capturing RAW internally on the Canon C200, we have an established workflow. So going from the C200 RAW workflow to this C500 Mark II RAW workflow should be a fairly smooth transition. xf-avc recording. So personally, I've only dabbled in it a little bit because I have an existing RAW workflow that literally allows me to go shoot a project, 2 or 3 hour project, bring it back into the studio and have it ready for delivery that same day. But xf-avc, if you don't need RAW, it actually is kind of amazing. I made a video about it and I'll be sure to link it in case you're interested.
Built-in electronic image stabilization.
Built-in electronic IS, or image stabilization. That's a big deal. I'm not hating on it, but I do want to see how it works. And as soon as I can get my hands on one of these cameras, I'm going to be sure to test that because I own cinema lenses and image stabilization is not a thing for that type of glass.
And 3 available expansion options. Canon has released its most dynamic and versatile cinema camera ever.
Modularity and expansion. That's kind of nice again. And again, thank you, Canon, for doing this, because that means that if I don't need gen and sync lock or 4-channel XLR inputs, I don't have to pay for it. So thank you for that. But more importantly, it's a bigger deal because to me, it seems like Canon has been listening to those of us who use their products and understands or has a better understanding of the types of things that we are out there shooting, working on, or producing. And what they've done is they've allowed us to then look at a single solution that can be adapted for these different types of environments. Everything from web delivery to live multicam production. It's kind of a big deal, and why it is that I'm actually really digging this.
Hi, I'm Charles LeBlanc, and I'm here to introduce the new EOS C500 Mark II, an incredible tool for capturing stunning 5.9K, 4K, or 2K videos in a compact and modular design. With a price tag under $20,000, this camera offers full-frame shooting capabilities in a familiar form factor. The EOS C500 Mark II utilizes a Canon 5.9K full-frame 17:9 DCI CMOS sensor, just like our top-of-the-line EOS C700 full-frame camera.
They put the exact same full-frame sensor that is on their flagship camera, the Canon C700 full-frame. Wow. And by the way, that Canon C700 full-frame is a camera that I actually had considered. And when I crunched the numbers and compared the Canon C700 full-frame to the Red Monstro, which is the full-frame equivalent in the Red ecosystem, I actually opted or was considering going the Red route because it would actually be cheaper, as in less expensive, to go the Red route if I wanted to capture full frame RAW. The C500 Mark II changes everything for someone like me who shoots a lot of different types of content at different budgets.
This sensor size supports both anamorphic and spherical lenses, as well as built-in crop functions for Super 35 and Super 16 shooting. The powerful sensor exceeds 15 stops of dynamic range.
15 stops of dynamic range? Okay, I guess we'll see. But the actual bigger deal here is the added support and maybe infrastructure built into the camera for HDR support. Because I remember back when the C300 Mark II was announced and then later on released, AbleCine actually made a video where they're going through these different shooting formats, and they kind of made fun about the ACES support as well as the BT 2020 or Rec 2020 support. In fact, he said, who the hell is shooting BT 2020? Fast forward to today, and here we are. So that's why this is a bigger deal.
Offering great image tonality and improving HDR production. The 5.9K output of the sensor also enables oversampling 4K processing to produce cleaner, better 4K imagery with suppressed moire and noise.
The oversampling that is offered when you're shooting in 4K, so you're taking the whole sensor, oversampling, and then crunching that down into a 4K deliverable all in camera, is a huge deal. And in fact, that is the main reason why it is that when I'm shooting on Red, I always shoot in 8K, because that extra resolution then brought down to that 4K deliverable always looks better.
The EOS C500 Mark II features 3 memory card slots, 2 CF Express and 1 SD. CF Express is a state-of-the-art flash memory card specifically developed and standardized to support large data files and high write speeds.
3 card slots? That's actually really nice. He didn't mention whether they would or wouldn't allow relay recording, but my guess is they will, because that's how it's worked on the rest of the cinema line of cameras. It's also worth pointing out that dual card slots on cinema cameras, it's kind of a rare thing these days. Like, you don't see dual card slots on Red cameras. You don't see dual card slots on the Canon C200. You don't see dual card slots on the Arri Alexa Mini. So having redundancy in camera as well as proxy recording is huge.
The camera can internally record 5.9K 60p files in Cinema Raw Lite, which offers the benefits of RAW recording with a reduced file size.
5.9K internal 60 frames per second recording in RAW may sound like, well, there are other cameras that are much cheaper that can also do this. And that is true. There are other cameras. In fact, I own one. It's in the shelf back there. It's the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. It can record 6K at 50p, not 60. But it cannot do it in full frame. Red has a Gemini, and also they have a Dragon. And if someone did an upgrade, they also have the Red Weapon that can record in 6K. But that's still not full frame. And definitely, there isn't another camera in the market that can record full frame, almost 6K, but let's say 5K, raw internally at that price point.
Additionally, the C500 Mark II can internally record 4K or 2K 10-bit 422 files in XFAVC. The SD card slot captures proxy files up to 2K 8-bit 420.
Here's another feature. XF-AVC 4K or 2K 10-bit 422 internal recording. That's what every single C200 owner that I know at this point has actually asked for. But what that should also tell you, if you're a C200 owner, is that at least now you know where you stand. You shouldn't expect that that will be upgraded in your camera. Proxy recording, 8-bit 420 files, seems like a nice little perk. I don't use proxy files, but if you do, or you need them for editing or so that multiple people can edit a project or to start a rough cut by using dailies, that's actually not a bad option.
If you're looking to use an external recorder, the C500 Mark II features 12G SDI out for an uncompressed 4K signal, as well as 4K 422 at 60 frames per second via HDMI out.
SDI out, uncompressed, 4K at 60 frames per second. HDMI out, 4K 422 at 60 frames per second. I've owned a lot of cameras over my career. I've owned a lot of Canon cameras. I've owned Sony cameras. I've owned Blackmagic cameras. Obviously, I still own a Red camera. And not any one of those cameras that I mentioned has the ability to do that. None of them are outputting a 4K signal via SDI or HDMI in 422 at 60 frames per second. So to me, that is a very big deal. And the main reason is that for the past couple of years, one of my struggles or challenges has had to do with monitoring options. So being able to actually monitor a 4K signal on a 4K display, especially if it's color calibrated and color accurate, that changes everything. Because when you're shooting at higher resolutions, thunderstorm, who knew? As I was saying, when you're shooting at higher resolutions, 4K, 5K, 6K, 8K, that margin of error, whether it be missing focus or not noticing a variance in color temperature on lights, becomes a much bigger problem that you then have to deal with in post, if not completely reshoot. So that, to me, is a huge selling point for the C500 Mark II. SDI and HDMI out in 10-bit 422. I had to let that sink in for a moment.
When shooting in 2K on the CF Express cards, you can get slow motion up to 120 frames per second.
120 frames per second in 2K, it's kind of a sweet spot for the types of productions that I'm shooting. Yes, it is cropping into the sensor like most other cameras, Red or Blackmagic do. Even Canon cameras crop into the sensor when you have to shoot at higher frame rates, right? What I'm interested to see, and will be sure to test out as soon as I get my hands on this camera, is whether in fact the image becomes soft or it becomes mushy, like it does on other cameras. Which, by the way, is the reason why I ended up actually purchasing a 1DX Mark II. So we'll have to wait and see.
The EOS C500 Mark II also offers Canon Log 2 and 3 Gamma, as well as loadable custom LUTs, to help make sure that you have all the image latitude that you need for post-production to deliver the exact look you envision.
Canon Log 2 and Canon Log 3 in the camera, I think that that's terrific. So I've been shooting Canon Log 2 on my C300 Mark II from the moment I got the camera. That is exactly what it is that I shoot for. That's how I expose. When I'm using the C300 Mark II and the C200, I expose the exact same way on both cameras because of the way that it is that my workflow works. I'm editing in Resolve, I'm color correcting in Resolve, I'm color grading in Resolve, and what that really means is that if you're on the C200, you don't have the ability to monitor C-Log 2. And that's where this announcement becomes attention grabbing for me, because it can mean one of two things. Resolve will actually make adjustments in their raw controls to allow for cinema raw light to be switched from C-Log 3 or C-Log 2, which would benefit every single Canon C200 user, or they'll leave it exactly the way that it is now, where it's locked into and defaults to C-Log 2, and basically our workflow doesn't change at all. If you are choosing to shoot in C-Log 3, then what that really means is that you have to rely, this is for the C200 users, you have to rely on hoping that you exposed for C-Log 3 that will automatically adjust correctly to C-Log 2, or use LUTs and hope that what you're seeing in your monitors is actually what ends up in the post-production workflow. So good news is, hopefully Resolve will allow for the metadata to be adjusted from C-Log 2 to C-Log 3. Worst case, C500 Mark II users, shoot everything in C-Log 2, monitor in C-Log 2, and you should have a seamless approach in post-production workflow. C200 people, we're kind of stuck doing exactly whatever it is that we have been doing.
The C500 Mark II ships with Canon's EF mount, but for the first time ever in Canon's Cinema EOS line, you will be able to purchase a PL or locking EF mount and swap the mounts yourself. This added modularity allows you to choose the lenses that work best for your project without limitations. Swapping the mounts takes only moments with 4 screw adjustments and can be done with the included Allen key and shim set. When using an EF mount, you'll have the added functionality of our dual pixel CMOS autofocus and focus guide on Canon EF and EF cinema lenses.
Dual pixel autofocus on their stills lenses, as well as focus assist features on their cinema lenses. That's actually great to see. That's something that we have seen on other camera systems. If you've ever used dual pixel autofocus on a Canon cinema line of cameras, you know that it works really well. It's not perfect, especially when you have some really high dynamic range scenes. So for example, the person's face might be in shadow and it's full sun on a white roof in the background. You can still get exposure, but the dual pixel autofocus doesn't work great in that scenario. Focus assist features on cinema lenses, they generally work great unless you happen to be using the 30-105 compact zoom CNE lens by Canon. I happen to own it. When I bought that lens, it was $24,000 or just shy of it, like $23,700 or $23,750, around there. And of course, the first time I tried to use it on my C300 Mark II, using the focus assist feature, it didn't work. And yes, it did upset me, but I was more upset that I didn't test that feature before I actually went out on the project. So once we get the C500 Mark II into the studio, I'm going to slap that lens on, and I'll be sure to let you guys know if that focus assist feature actually works and is supported on that lens too.
The swappable mounts aren't the only way that the C500 Mark II offers customization and flexibility. There are 3 options available for purchase with this camera. The C500 Mark II comes standard with a 4.3-inch touch LCD panel, but for those that want an electronic viewfinder, an add-on EVF offers over 1.7 million dots of resolution, covering 100% of the field of view with crystal clear OLED imagery.
Having the ability to attach or remove an EVF without any cables onto this camera body is actually a really sweet deal, because you'll have all the freedom you need to mount your camera on a gimbal or fly it if you need to, as well as put that EVF back on that body when you need to judge critical focus or exposure in really bright sunlight. So that's kind of a win-win here.
One expansion unit offers Genlock, Sync Out, and Ethernet functionality.
The small expansion unit allows you to take that one camera and bring it into a multicam live production environment. Again, really nice, good add-on.
While another expansion option includes those features plus 2 additional XLR input terminals, a V-mount battery bracket, and 12 and 24 volt power outputs.
That larger expansion unit with the V-Lock battery plate on the back and an extra 2 XLR channels coming into the camera. I'm just going to say, as an indie filmmaker who sometimes needs to go out on location or travel around the world working on a project where I can't always bring a full production crew with me or a dedicated sound mixer, that module is going to come in incredibly handy for me.
You can also utilize the existing EVF-V70 viewfinder in conjunction with one of the 2 expansion units to maximize the potential of the C500 Mark II modularity. We've only begun to scratch the surface of what the C500 Mark II delivers to you and your productions. This compact, lightweight powerhouse is an ideal way to step up from your C300 Mark II into the world of full-frame cinema. It even uses the same BPA-30 and BPA-60 batteries. For more information, be sure to visit our website and subscribe to our YouTube page. For Canon USA, I'm Charles Leblanc. Thanks for watching.
Wow. All I can say is that I am more than impressed. In my opinion, the Canon C500 Mark II is the absolute best and most well thought out camera on the market today. I'm going to predict that this camera will become the standard for all of us indie filmmakers, content creators, modern cinematographers who want to be owner-operators. Okay, that lightning strike was really close. So I haven't seen any severe thunderstorm warnings come through my phone, so maybe this was a surprise storm, who knows? So for what it's worth, I've pre-ordered. Of course I did. If you guys enjoy this type of content, be sure to let me know. Subscribe and ring that bell so that you can enable notifications. And until next time, I'm Carlos, and I'll catch you guys in the comments. Take care.